Oh, that is insane.
Hello and welcome to Tuesday Newsday, your number one resource for the entire week's worth of VR news. The Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas just occurred, and I showed up and tried out nearly everything VR related, ranging from a consumer level electrostimulation vest called the OO skin, to cheap full body tracking for everybody coming soon, a Tesla suit, to about 5 different haptic gloves, even a wireless Valve Index setup. This is a peek into the absolute future of virtual reality, all of the most cutting edge tech. So let's just get right into the news. First off, there are a few things at CES that really deserve their own videos, like SHIFTALL's full body tracker and the Tesla suit and all of these gloves. So I will be making individual videos that focus on some of the more special things that need more details that I tested. But here is a base recap of everything, because there was a lot to see this year and a lot to be excited about. So let's start this one out with the first booth that I went to, HTC. HTC Vive released about 3 new headsets in 2021, the Vive Pro 2, Vive Flow, and Focus 3. The latter likely being the best standalone headset on the market right now, if it didn't cost significantly more than its competition. But HTC did show a couple really cool things at CES this year, starting with a new inside-out tracker with its base functionality being a wrist tracker to use with inside-out tracking. The main usage aiding hand tracking to prevent occlusion, providing a tracking point between the hand and elbow. But it can be used for a variety of things. For example, in my demo, I wasn't actually holding any controllers, instead holding a fire extinguisher that was tracked using these wrist trackers, kind of turning it into a controller or virtual object without needing base stations or any sort of other trackers. And of course, my first reaction was to ask HTC if these could be used for any sort of full body tracking, but of course, since the headset's cameras need to see these trackers for them to work well, that application wouldn't work out so great. These will launch for $129 this year. But HTC did have another really cool demo. I got to try, for the first time, super low latency 5G VR, something that I've been waiting for a long time. I imagine in the future, using some sort of super fast internet connection, you'd be able to buy a VR headset that contains very minimal processing hardware, both making the headset cheaper and lighter, and use that interconnection to run graphically intensive VR games without ever needing a PC or big hefty battery. And this was the first time that I got to see this in action, testing out an application that was not rendered locally, instead being rendered a few miles away and broadcasted through 5G to the headset with latency as low as 11 milliseconds. It was really cool being in a VR application that wasn't being rendered locally and was graphically way better than whatever the XR2 could really run. And I legitimately could not tell the difference latency-wise. I sense a very bright future for VR and 5G cloud computing. Of course, this is mainly for enterprise applications now, but I can imagine this coming to consumer VR within the next few years. Next up, something a little more fun. Panasonic held a booth with their affiliate company SHIFTALL to show off 3 really amazing things that I was able to demo. 1, a tiny micro OLED SteamVR compatible inside-out tracked VR headset. 2, a VR noise suppressor / microphone that will make more sense in just a second. And most exciting for me, a full body tracking solution that will be available this year that requires no base station, works with any VR headset, and has hands down the best tracking quality I've seen out of a base station-less full body tracking setup. Let's start with the MEGANEX, a small form factor micro OLED VR headset launching later this year. So first of all, it looks really cool, and from my demo at least, is pretty comfortable, but its biggest strengths come from its extremely low weight and high resolution displays at 2560 by 2560 per eye. Also being tracked without base stations using 2 cameras on the headset itself. In case you're wondering, micro OLED displays are awesome because they have an incredibly high pixel density, and they're very small, allowing for smaller form factor headsets like this, and have extreme clarity, but suffer from a couple problems. The biggest being brightness levels, and from the few micro OLED devices that I have tried, they tend to be pretty dim, and the MEGANEX did not suffer from that, being one of the brighter micro OLED displays that I have tried. However, the field of view was not impressive, having a noticeably narrow and circular field of view. I did ask about controller options for the MEGANEX, and they said that they have something to announce in the future, so it's something I'm looking forward to, but for now, we know that this is launching for lower than $900 this year. Next from SHIFTALL is something pretty weird but also really useful. This is a noise suppression Bluetooth microphone that straps to your face, blocking out your own voice, so that your voice can only be heard in VR. Now, immediately, I see this being useful for having two people in one play space so their voices aren't going through both mics, or if you're in a place with thin walls or your family's around really close, your voice while going through VR chat doesn't echo through the whole house. It's odd, but really useful, and I'm glad that it's here. But the most exciting thing, which I will be making an entire video on this week to get into all of the details showing off the tracking, is the HARITORAX. Easily the best full body tracking solution that I've tried that works with any VR headset, no hassle, and does not require base stations. These will be available to purchase this year for under $300 and are similar to slime trackers in a lot of ways, just without any setup issues. And these have already been on sale for a while in Japan, so they're proven to work and are pretty widely adopted and have a lot of benefits. Probably one of the most exciting VR things that consumers can get their hands on this year that isn't just another headset. Plus, the tracking, like I said, is just so good. Next up is my favorite thing from all of CES, the OWO skin. And yeah, the OWO skin. We all know about haptic vests using vibration motors like BHAPTICS and Woodger vests that allow you to feel in VR, but there's a technology out there that is entirely different: electrostimulation. Literally using electricity to stimulate your muscles, skin, and body to feel VR in a totally different way, and it's shockingly good. The only other device out there that uses electrostimulation on the market is the $12,000 plus Tesla suit, but for consumers, we now have the OWO suit to look forward to. Launching just later this year for under $500, and let me tell you, this thing is actually insane. The sensations you set up for the OWO skin can range from light electrostimulation to intense pain that make you curl up uncontrollably from a gunshot in game. Plus, the form factor of the device is super small and light since you don't need a ton of vibration motors, just a few dry electrodes that make contact with your skin. In my demo, I had the OWO team calibrate the skin to be pretty intense so that I could get the full effect, and holy cow, it can get really intense, affecting the whole body, sending pulses of electricity through my arms and legs when shooting a gun, or even better, or worse, one of the demos simulating getting stabbed with a knife, then driving the knife deeper into my stomach. It doesn't exactly feel like a knife, not that I know what a knife feels like getting stabbed, but it is really intense. Probably one of the craziest things I've ever felt, but it's not just an electrostimulation suit on its own. It fully works within virtual reality, and that's where the real craziness starts. Being in a game and getting shot from all angles, or feeling a jolt of electricity down my arm when blocking a shot from an enemy, was very intense and probably one of the most immersive things I've ever done in VR. Even if the demo game wasn't particularly amazing, essentially just being a wave shooter, if there's something that will immerse you and incentivize you not to get shot and to pay attention to the game, it's getting a strong shock, almost getting tased to your side and having your arm go limp whenever you mess up. And I did also get to try out the Tesla suit as well, and I'll be comparing the two in a video later showing off my experiences, but according to OWO, which the name, we should be expecting this to come to consumers just later this year for a relatively comparable price to other haptic solutions. Next up, I think some of the enthusiasts will like this one. I am personally a Valve Index user. I love the headset and its capabilities, but one thing that does suck a little is it's an entirely wired headset, requiring a tether to do anything in VR. Well, there is a company working on making a really impressive wireless solution for the Valve Index and other high-end VR headsets, using laser beam transmission to allow lossless 4K zero compression video and data transmission with practically zero latency. And this isn't just for the Index, this is for any VR headset, or really any sort of high-speed, high-bandwidth, low-latency data transmission in general. VR in the Index is just one of the great applications to show this off, since wireless VR is already hard to do at these resolutions and frame rates. There's no word on price or ship time, but the technology is proven and really cool. Of course, you still have to set up another base station essentially for it to work, but for super high-quality wireless VR, this is something I'm gonna have to keep my eyes on. One thing that dominated CES for this year were the plethora of VR gloves. And this is likely another video that I will make regarding the glove options, since there were so many that do so many different things, but I'll just recap the different companies and their capabilities really quickly. First off, I want to clarify a few terms. Haptics are usually vibrations or sensations that allow you to feel virtual objects, and force feedback is a glove's ability to hold the fingers back so you can feel geometry of virtual objects you're holding. For example, your fingers closing around a door handle and a glove stopping your fingers where the door handle is actually at. So let's start with the the Tesla glove. This is the first time I got to see this glove in person, and it's actually nuts, featuring a full exoskeleton with haptic and force feedback, but there weren't any demos available to try with them, just the opportunity to try them on, which just looking at them is kind of cool on its own. However, in terms of actual demos, next were the SenseGloves, a simpler force feedback glove that hold back the position of 3 fingers and your thumb. In the demo, I built a robot in virtual reality holding a drill, feeling the trigger of the drill as I pressed the trigger of a virtual drill that didn't exist. Really an awesome experience, and it relied on an actual controller for the tracking rather than hand tracking, so it was relatively accurate as well. Next up, the Contact CI gloves, a full hand haptic and force feedback glove that specifically has super accurate fingertip haptics, allowing you to feel really light sensations like flicking the switch in an airplane cockpit and holding back your fingers when gripping an airplane yoke. These by far were the most immersive gloves that I tried and made me feel like I was actually in an airplane cockpit flicking switches and pressing buttons. But all of these options are very expensive and really only enterprise focused, unlike the BHAPTICS haptic glove. Using Quest 2 hand tracking and small accurate fingertip haptic motors, you can feel things you touch in VR. And these are the ones I could find myself actually using really often. And coincidentally, they're the only ones that are shipping this year to consumers for $300, a fraction of the $5,000 or more asked for these other gloves. Via and I were able to give real head pats in virtual reality and actually feel it both on our heads through haptic facial interfaces and through our hands through the gloves. These don't offer force feedback, but cheap finger haptics ended up being really cool and super additive for the VR experience, especially playing games like Unplugged. And if you can swing the price, I mean, they're pretty awesome. Also, real quick on haptics, newcomer is on the horizon with SKINETICS, a new haptic vest with a far more accurate set of vibration haptic motors. One of the most mind-blowing feelings was trying out their rain demo and expecting to feel wet from the raindrops around me, but also moving my body around and having the rain shift from my shoulders to my back to my chest, and I even laid down during the demo. The feeling was so convincing, maybe due to my lack of sleep as well, that I was feeling raindrops even in places where I didn't have the haptic vest on. Definitely something that I'm interested in looking at again in the future. But that wasn't all. I got to try out the XTAL 3, an extremely wide field of view VR headset meant specifically for the absolute most realistic simulator experiences. And I gotta say, the 8K resolution on this headset and practically zero distortion 180-degree field of view was insane. The widest and clearest VR headset out there by far, also featuring eye-tracked foveated rendering, mixed reality. All in all, it was an absolute blast and a huge improvement over the previous iteration, which I do have a video on as well. I think one of the coolest parts of this demo was the mixed reality cockpit flying around Las Vegas with an actual pilot. For the simulation, the virtual world was starting over the actual physical cockpit, with the incredible clarity and field of view of the XTAL 3. At first, I almost couldn't tell where physical reality ended and the virtual reality simulation started. I had to press the screen and it was really a trippy experience. And I also got to try out HapticSolutions Microcelia, a smell-o-vision-esque scent module that allowed me to smell things in virtual reality. The demo allowed me to smell an apple, bottle of root beer, cotton candy, all within VR and Neos, and all in all, it was a really cool demo, and I did bring back a module to experiment with more at home, so I can show you guys more on that later. So, what was the most exciting thing for you this CES? Lots of amazing stuff, and I want to talk all about it, and if there's anything here that you want to see more detail on, definitely let me know, because I've got a lot of footage and a lot of demos. And I will be having an extended Tuesday Newsday on Twitch after this video, since this was more or less just a CES recap, so come on over and check that out if you want to see some more, and join in my Discord server if you want updates on that, or want to be a part of a great VR community. Thank you to all of my Patreon supporters, especially my Omegas. You made this entire trip possible, and I couldn't do it without you. Don't forget to like this video if you loved it, subscribe if you want more of this, and hit that freaking bell if you just can't live without it. Much love, Thrill out.